and welcome to another episode of the Tombstone Tourist. I'm going to try and do something a little different this week. I've got several comments and suggestions from some of the subscribers to the channel and from some of my friends who have asked that I do a cemetery overview of the people that are notable people that are resting in these cemeteries that I do from time to time. And that's what I'm going to try to do today. We're going to visit a cemetery here in Franklin, Tennessee that I've been to before, and in fact I've done individual videos for many of the notable people that are resting here in this cemetery. So today I'm just going to briefly visit or revisit some of their graves and touch on their lives. Many of the stars of the Grand Ole Opry lived here in Franklin, and they are resting in this cemetery. And we're going to be visiting with some of them very briefly. Now, this cemetery is Williamson Memorial Gardens, and it's located here off of, I think, US 31 in Franklin, Tennessee. And that's the main entrance and the funeral home and mortuary. And if you walk right up the hill from the entrance, we're going to come to two brothers who were early stars of the Grand Ole Opry and were key performers for the radio show during that first 50 years of the Opry. And here is the grave of Kirk McGee.
Kirk McGee began performing in the early 1920s, and his career extended into the mid-1970s. Early in his career, he performed with Uncle Dave Macon and later with fiddling Arthur Smith and the Dixieliners. He also performed with such country music stars as Roy Acuff and Hank Snow and a number of the Opry stars. Throughout his career, Kirk performed with his brother Sam, and the pair were regulars on both the Friday and Saturday night Opries.
And if we walk down the hill a little ways, past the statue of Jesus, we're going to come to Kirk's brother, Sam McGee, who is resting with other members of the McGee family somewhere right down here.
And here is the grave of Sam McGee. Sam and Kirk McGee performed together for more than 50 years. The act ended suddenly when Sam was killed in a farming accident here in Franklin in 1975. After Sam's death, Kirk continued to perform as a regular member of the Grand Ole Opry until shortly before his death in 1983.
Just a short walk from the graves of Sam and Kirk McGee, over in the adjacent section, almost directly behind the funeral home, we come to a husband and wife duo who were stars of the Grand Ole Opry for many, many years. Here is the grave of Carl and Pearl Butler.
Carl and Pearl Butler were popular country music performers from 1961 until they retired in 1980. Even after retirement, they continued to make regular appearances on the Grand Ole Opry. In addition to being talented performers, they were also noted songwriters, penning such hits as If Teardrops Were Pennies and Crying My Heart Out Over You, which was a hit for Porter Wagoner and Dolly Parton, and in 1981, it was the first #1 hit for Ricky Skaggs. But they're perhaps best known for their 1963 recording of Don't Let Me Cross Over, which became their signature song. Pearl Butler died at the age of 60 on March 1st, 1988. A little over 4 years later, Carl died of a heart attack on September 4th, 1992.
And if we walk across the road into the next section, which is right over here, we're going to come to a man that for more than 47 years served as an announcer on the Grand Ole Opry. He was known as the Dean of Opry announcers. Here in the Garden of Peace, we find the grave of Mr. Grant Turner. I think the inscription on Grant's gravestone is very, very appropriate. It's country music legend and voice of the Grand Ole Opry for 47 years. He lived his life making others happy. I think that's appropriate. I had the pleasure of meeting Grant Turner several years back in the mid-1980s. And there used to be a Shoney's restaurant out on Music Valley Drive near the new Opry House. I don't know whether it's still there or not, but one night I was having supper there, and Grant Turner was also there having supper. And I waited until he finished his meal and walked over and very politely asked him for an autograph. Well, for the next 35 or 40 minutes, he visited with me and shared stories of his association with, as he put it, the greatest radio show that's ever been, the Grand Ole Opry. And the stories that I remember of him sharing with me that night were the ones especially about Roy Acuff and Minnie Pearl, the love that they had for each other and the love that Grant had for them. Grant told me that night that there's only a few people in this industry that are worthy of being called Mr. And that's why he always introduced Roy on the stage of the Grand Ole Opry as a member of the Country Music Hall of Fame and the king of country music, Mr. Roy Acuff and his Smoky Mountain Boys. Grant Turner, what a fine man and what a fine individual. And I was so fortunate to be able to spend some time with him many, many years ago. Rest in peace, Grant. A couple sections over from where Carl and Pearl Butler are buried is another Grand Ole Opry star. She was one of the grand ladies of the Grand Ole Opry. Here is the grave of Miss Skeeter Davis. Skeeter Davis was born on December 30th, 1931 and passed away on September 19th, 2004. She was a member of the Grand Ole Opry from 1959 until 2004. Her stone is inscribed renowned worldwide entertainer and recording artist of the end of the world. And I think The End of the World was probably her most popular song, and one that she sung just about every Friday and Saturday night on the Grand Ole Opry. And leaving the grave of Skeeter Davis, we're going to walk across the road, and we're going to find the final resting place of a husband and wife duo. Right up here is the grave of Carl Smith and Goldie Hill.
Carl Smith was one of country music's most successful stars during the 1950s. Known as Mr. Country, he scored 30 top 10 Billboard hits, 21 of which were consecutive. In 1952, Carl married June Carter, with whom he had a daughter who was known professionally as Carlene Carter. Carl and June divorced in 1956. We all know that June later married Johnny Cash. Carl later married Goldie Hill, who was one of the first women to reach the top of the country music charts with her 1953 hit, I Let the Star Get in My Eye. Goldie, along with Kitty Wales and Gene Shepard, set the standard for women in country music. Goldie Hill passed away at the age of 72 on February 24, 2004. In 2003, Carl Smith was inducted into the Country Music Hall of Fame. He passed away at the age of 82.
And if we walk directly behind Carl Smith and Goldie Hill, we're going to come to another notable person that's resting in here in this section. And right back here, we're going to find the grave of one of the greats in gospel music. Here is the final resting place of Glen Payne.
Glen Payne was one of the most well-known stars in gospel music. Glen was best remembered for being a longtime member of the Cathedral Quartet. The Cathedrals were regulars on the Sunday morning TV show The Gospel Singing Jubilee and made several appearances at the Billy Graham Crusades. During the 1980s, Glen and his longtime friend George Yance were regulars on the Gaither Homecoming videos. Glen passed away during the Cathedral's farewell tour on October 15, 1999, from the complications of cancer. He was 72 years old.
Now, while I've done individual videos on most of the notable people that are resting in this cemetery, there's one that I haven't. And we're going to visit his grave right now. To find it, you come all the way to the back of the cemetery and look for this building that's got cremation niches inside, and you walk right out the path until you see this bench, and this should tell you or give you an idea of who we're going to visit. It's a little hard to read, but directly behind the bench is the grave of Troy Gentry.
In 1999, Troy joined Eddie Montgomery to form the popular act known as Montgomery Gentry. They were popular with country music fans, and they were also very popular with Southern rock fans. While popular in their own right, Montgomery Gentry shared the stage with the likes of the Charlie Daniels Band, Toby Keith, and the Allman Brothers Band. Montgomery Gentry was at the height of their popularity when Troy died in a helicopter crash near Medford, New Jersey on September 8, 2017. He was 50 years old. Well, I'm going to end this video here at the Williamson Memorial Gardens in Franklin, Tennessee. I know this is a little different from what I usually do, but I do hope that you found something interesting in this video. If you did, please let me know in the comments. And if you remember any of the people that we visit in these videos, share your memories with us in the comments also. Now, until next time, please remember, life is a wonderful journey. Be sure to take time and enjoy it. And I'll see you down the road. So long, everybody.